Types of reproduction. In this lesson, we'll look at the science and engineering practices of constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in argument from evidence, and obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information. Our cross-cutting concepts are patterns, cause and effect, and structure and function. Types of reproduction. There are two main ways in which organisms can reproduce. The first is asexual reproduction. This is when a single organism makes a copy of itself that contains exactly the same genetic code. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, is when two cells from two different organisms combine, producing an organism with a unique genetic code. In sexual reproduction, genes from two parent organisms are combined to produce an organism with a unique genetic code. Male and female sex cells fuse together during fertilization, combining their genetic material and forming a new living organism. Most animals and many plants reproduce sexually. Gametes. In animals and plants, sex cells are called gametes. In animals, including humans, female gametes are called egg cells, and male gametes are called sperm cells. In flowering plants, the female gametes are called egg cells, and the male gametes are called pollen cells. Advantages of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction creates variation within a population. This is because when male and female gametes fuse during fertilization, they form a unique combination of genes. As a result, offspring are genetically different from both their parents and one another. This means that individuals within a population have differences in the genes that they carry. Genetic variation helps a population to cope with environmental changes. Variation makes it more likely that at least some individuals within the population will be well adapted to new conditions. These individuals will be more likely to survive and reproduce, passing their successful genes on to the next generation. As a result, variation reduces the chance of a population crash, which could potentially cause a species to become extinct. Natural selection requires genetic variation amongst individuals of a species. Natural selection is the process by which evolution and the formation of new species occurs. Disadvantages of sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction can be a relatively slow process. Organisms that reproduce sexually need to find a mate to produce offspring. This takes time and energy, and some individuals may never successfully reproduce. There can be a long period between fertilization and the birth of the offspring. For example, female elephants are pregnant for 21 months before giving birth, and typically they only give birth to a single calf. Oftentimes, the number of offspring in sexual reproduction is exceptionally low. Asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, a single organism makes a copy of itself with exactly the same genetic code. The new organism is considered a clone of the original. Organisms that reproduce asexually include some plants, such as spider plants, strawberries, and potatoes, microorganisms, such as bacteria and yeast, as well as a few insects, like aphids. Strawberry plants. Strawberry plants can reproduce asexually. They have specialized stems called runners that grow from the parent plant. Each runner forms a new strawberry plant. and each new plant is a clone of the parent plant, meaning that they're genetically identical to the parent plant. Speedy bacterial clones. Bacteria can copy themselves very quickly. Their numbers can double every 20 minutes. That's 10 times faster than the quickest animal cell reproduction. Advantages of asexual reproduction. Asexual organisms do not need to use energy and time to find a mate, as only a single parent is required. This means that asexual organisms can reproduce even if they are alone. Asexual reproduction is faster than sexual reproduction, enabling many offspring to be produced quickly. Both of these advantages could help increase population size following a sudden fall in numbers, preventing extinction. Some species of sea anemone reproduce asexually by splitting in half along their length to make two fully formed individuals. Asexual reproduction produces offspring that are genetically identical to each other and the parent organism. If the parent is well adapted to its environment, then its offspring will also be well adapted as long as conditions remain stable. Under steady, favorable conditions, a population of asexual organisms can rapidly increase in size. Seen here in this picture, we are looking at aphids. Aphids are a type of insect. They can reproduce sexually or asexually, depending on the time of year. Asexual reproduction occurs in the spring and summer when there is plenty of food available for offspring and weather conditions are more likely to be stable. Disadvantages of asexual reproduction. Although asexual reproduction has many short-term advantages, there are some important disadvantages. Asexual reproduction produces clones, meaning all offspring are genetically identical to the parent and to each other. As a result, asexual reproduction is unable to create variation in a population. This can be a problem if environmental conditions are unstable. If the parent is not well adapted to the new conditions, neither will its offspring be. This can lead to a population crash if there are no individuals well suited to the environment. A kalanchoe plant can reproduce asexually by producing plantlets on its leaves. Each plantlet has the potential to develop into an individual kalanchoe plant. We can see a kalanchoe plant here in the image. Sexual or asexual reproduction. Some organisms can reproduce both sexually and asexually. Strawberry plants, for example, they reproduce asexually through the production of runners. They also reproduce sexually through the production of seeds. If we're looking at a strawberry, where might we find the seeds on a strawberry plant? We find the seeds on the fruiting portion of the plant. Daffodils are another example of a plant that can use either method of reproduction. Daffodils reproduce asexually through their bulbs. Bulbs are a type of underground storage organ that contain the shoot of a new plant. Bulbs can divide to reproduce several individual plants, genetically identical to each other and the original parent plant. So let's look at the following statements and identify if they are appropriate to asexual or sexual reproduction.